Let me ask you, Bill, excuse me, do you have any statistics as to how many of the 500 Major League players who served were killed?
Were killed? Mm-hmm. Yes, two. Two were killed.
Only two.
And I can get that to that in a minute, or I can tell you right now. The two who were killed were a man named Elmer Gideon, who was an outfielder for the Washington Senators for 5 games before the war. He was killed in 1944 in France. Another player who played in only 1 game for the Philadelphia A's was a catcher named Harry O'Neill. Never got to come to bat and was killed on the sands of Iwo Jima in 1945.
One of the reasons I ask is because I want to bring all these other participants in here because we are not going to have all that much time today. And Bert Shepard made some history of his own after he came back from the war, right?
He did. Bert was a minor league pitcher, a left-handed pitcher before the war. Was shot down over Germany, was a prisoner of war, lost about half of his right leg, was amputated to save his life, and came back after the war, and unbelievable as it seems, made the major leagues in 1945 on an artificial leg. The only player ever to play in the major leagues on an artificial leg, including Monty Stratton. Some people say, what about him? But Monty Stratton never made it back to the major leagues.
How did you do it, Bert?
Well, I just threw the ball like I was supposed to and ran whenever I had to, and there's no problem.
No problem at all?
No.
What was your record the first season?
Wasn't very good. I only pitched in 1 official game. That was against the Boston Red Sox. I came in with the bases loaded and struck out George Metkovich to end the inning. And then for the next 5 innings, they only got 1 run and 3 hits, so I did pretty good. So a lot of people send me letters, how come you didn't get more ball games? Well, we had 4 knuckleballers, and they were all keeping the Senators in every ball game for the rest of the season, and had I been the manager, I wouldn't have put myself in. So I have no qualms about not getting any more ball games.
Well, he did, though, Gene, get into some games. He had to have 5 more operations on his leg after the war, so he never made it back to the majors. Bert Shepard didn't, but he did make it back to the minors, and he's too modest to tell you, but let me tell you, he played 3 more years in the minors as a pitcher, a first baseman, and manager. In 1 game when the other team was having trouble hitting him, knowing that he had an artificial leg, they laid down 9 bunts against him.
Oh boy!
And he threw out all 9 hitters. And he told me many years ago, he said, "I wish I had done that the whole game. I'd have pitched a perfect game." And 1 season, believe it or not, Bert Shepard, running on an artificial leg, stole 5 bases.
Is that right?
Stole 5 bases.
Yes, and I don't know why.
He might be able to do it today.
I don't know why those hitters would bunt with that junk I'm throwing up there.
Bob Feller, let me ask you, you were a household name when you went into the Navy already. What was it like in terms of the reception you got from your fellow sailors?
Well, I went to boot camp in Norfolk, Virginia, and the Gene Tunney program of physical fitness. And I was in the physical fitness program for a short time. I went through camp, and then I applied for War College at Newport, Rhode Island. I went up there and was studying on the guns. And of course, I did a lot of shooting. I belonged to the NRA, and I did a lot of pistol shooting, shotguns, rifle, and I was very handy with guns. And so I went on an aircraft guns. We needed gun crews to take supplies to Russia, so I had my gun crew of 24 men. We went out right aboard the Wyoming and Chesapeake Bay for a couple of weeks for training crews, and on the battleship Alabama when it was commissioned, and Hampton Roads at Norfolk. It was built in Newport News. We took supplies to Russia for a year, escorted the convoys to Murmansk and Archangel, through the U-boats up around Spitzberg and Bear Island. Then we went to the Pacific and took MacArthur back to the Philippines. But the way not everybody liked the old Navy fellows, like the chief petty officers. And my answer to any of them was, look, this is not a career for me. I came here to fight and win a war, and I don't care what the hell you think.
Well, that's a pretty good answer, I would have thought. Warren, tell us a little bit about your experience with the Battle of the Bulge, one of the more famous battles of its kind ever fought in the United States history, I think.
Well, it all happened by accident, really. Right. We were entered into the war at the Battle of the Bulge at Hurtgen Forest. We were green. When I first came into the service, they asked me what I did in civilian life, and I said I was a ball player, so that the Army didn't know what to do with me, so they put me in a 14th Armored Division. And I sent my basic training with the 14th Armored Division, and then the Pentagon streamlined the Armored Force and made it headquarters A, B, and C Company, and I was in D Company. E Company was a bridge company, so they took all the personnel from the D companies and made combat engineer battalions out of them. And that's what I went overseas with, combat engineers. And let me tell you, a tough bunch of guys. We had people that were let out of prison to go into the service. We had the dropouts of the Air Force and every other branch of the service. So those are the people I went overseas with, and they were tough and rough, and you know, I had to fit that mold too. And we were surrounded by the Germans in the Hurtgen Forest, and we had to fight our way out of there. And one of the interesting things that, you know, relates to baseball is that we had a password among the Americans that who played the Keystone sack for the Bums. And if anybody in the United States Army wasn't a baseball fan, they were dead. Because the Germans had our dog tags, they had our uniforms, our equipment, and you know, I felt sorry for those Americans that didn't know baseball. But that was the correlation that I was very proud of, that I played baseball, and we worked our way out of there, and we went through Malmedy and Bastogne. We were with the 101st Air Force, or rather flyboys, and you know, the Germans had massacred a lot of our people at Bastogne, and we hated them even more so than we did before. And then we were ordered to go to the Rhine River, and just so happened that the bridge at Remagen was set up for demolition, and the demolitions didn't go off. So that we had an opportunity to capture the 15 or so people that were Germans on that bridge, and captured the bridge. And now we have a bridgehead that even high command didn't know about. And you know, what do we do then? And we established a bridgehead, and I remember the Luftwaffe coming over the mountain, strafing. They were trying to retake the bridge that we had taken. So we were under hell for a while. And then we got some artillery, and we got some people there that we established a line of fire where, you know, the 50 caliber machine gun, every fifth bullet, I think, was a tracer, and it looked like the 4th of July, that they all had an area of coverage. And I saw German planes go over, and incidentally, some of our planes that the Germans had that flew over there trying to bomb us, and you could see sparks where the shells hit the planes but didn't take them down. And I remember it was a P-38 that we knocked down, and this plane was buried in the ground, and the pilot was nothing but ashes, and we checked to make sure that he was dead or we were going to take a prisoner.